foremost, I'm an artist. I'm an artist by choice. I have an education. I have a doctorate in education. But what I choose to do is to express myself through my art. I would say that working from the edges of the world, like Grenada, which is a small island in the Caribbean without any institutions for art, without a museum, has taught me a lot about do it yourself.
Great. Thank you, Susan, for that introduction. I just wanted to start the video off by asking you one of the questions regarding, you know, so there are a lot of young artists who are looking for a global platform in which through which one can display their art forms. And one such are biennales, which are often, I believe, a good way to sort of really go out there and exhibit your work in front of a global audience. Now, since you have done this, since you have sort of represented your country in one of the biggest biennales in the world, uh, could you throw some light in terms of what are the sort of elements that artists should sort of bring into their body of work over a period of time, through which they can probably have a better chance of getting selected in such biennales?
Well, first of all, let me say that the Venice Biennale, I participated for the first time in 2015. But let me say, as a base for what you're asking, for artists, young artists, artists who have not yet had the opportunity, nobody is coming to save you. You have to save yourself. You
Mhm.
have to be the one who is progressive and aggressive to get your work to be seen. As far as your content or painting to be noticed or making art that gets attention or whatever, I say that in whatever media that you're working in, if you do it from your passion, from what's inside of you, it will rise. Do not try to copy trends or look at others to see what they're doing to hope maybe if you do the same, you'll get picked. While you should keep current with trends, just for your own information, don't copy. Don't let it influence you. Let your voice be your authentic voice. And that is what curators will notice.
Mhm, mhm. For example, a lot of artists think that, your work should be political, your work should probably say something very controversial or very bold, and that's probably the only way to get noticed. But that doesn't happen.
Only if that's your practice, only if
Oh,
that's what moves you, if that's what pushes you forward, if that's what drives you, you should do it 100%. If that's
mm,
not your practice, don't imitate in order just to be heard. Don't be outrageous
mhm. Okay.
unless you're naturally outrageous. Then
Mhm.
go for it.
I guess that will also show in your body of work. I mean, if
Of
you've always
course.
been that kind of an artist, then
Of
yeah, it
course.
will
Yeah.
show. Um, would you say that there should be some level of consistency in terms of the content that one deals with? So, for example, let's say an artist who has always felt very strongly about LGBTQ, for example,
Yes.
and that kind of shows in the last, let's say, 5 years of work,
Yeah.
as opposed to one artist who has sort of moved on from one story to another. Does one have an advantage over the other?
You have to follow your heart. There are bodies of work for artists, and some artists may um, latch onto a particular theme, and then they feel like they've just said everything they have to say about it, and they move on to another body of work. Even
Mm,
artists who do that, if you look back through the work, you will see recurring identifiers in the artist, whether it's the medium, whether it's the way they express it, or, I think as long as an artist is following their passion, this will be the bridge that brings them to another set of work.
mhm, mhm. You know what? Thank you, Susan, for that, because put in a fresh perspective. Because you said that you have to be very honest with your work in terms of not
Yeah.
being able, not be imitating anything, or latch on to something which is seemingly a very trendy topic. If it belongs to you, if you feel for it, then I guess that will be the.
Yes. Yes, yes. And sometimes it takes years.
Mm,
Sometimes you may have been on this subject for 10, 15 years and It's like, why is nobody paying attention? This is important. And then overnight, you can get the attention that you need and you have the work. That's the key, is regardless, you have to keep doing the work.
Great advice. Thank you, Susan. I'll quickly move on to one more question for
Yes.
today. A lot of artists, such as I myself, feel that government and policymakers should sort of start investing in art as as an agent of change, not just in terms of aesthetics. Like we do not say that art should only be about coloring the walls of a city, perhaps, but then
Right.
to build a narrative around issues which affect all of us. Art, I believe, is a very potent medium, but we often feel that I don't know if it's true globally or not, but governments and policymakers do not often sort of believe in that. Do you share that thought? And if you do, what should artists, as individual or as a collective, should do to change that?
Well, I've been living in a country where making art for 35 years that the country doesn't care much about. And when I say the country, the government doesn't
Mm,
care much about art. It's only after all this time of advocating and talking and trying to convince that we're starting to get a little bit of movement now towards support of the artists. Bottom line is nobody cares but you. So you
mm,
have to be the one to collect yourself, to work with other artists, to push the ideas forward, to approach corporations, individuals, collectors, to be a constant voice. That
mm,
when people hear your name, they'll think, oh, yeah, that's that artist that's always talking about we should get funding for art.
mm,
Um, Nobody's coming to save you. You have to save yourself.
mm,
And this is really the only way forward, especially now. I mean, in the world, people say there's so many more important things. Look at the virus that's, causing a pandemic in the world. They'll say money
mm,
needs to be spent on that. Money
mm,
needs to be spent on health. Money needs to be spent on space programs. You know, um, you just cannot wait. You have to get up and do. You have to
mm,
get up and do for yourself and do for others. One of the most important things that I have learned is that if you want to affect change, you have to be willing to get your hands dirty for somebody else. Can't be just you and your
mm.
friends and your friends' children and their grandchildren. And, you have to be the one willing to do the work. And in the end, you benefit.
Mhm, mhm. Can you give us some insight in terms of what are the struggles that you faced in your country, and how do you feel that you're making a dent in that?
We have been to the Venice Biennale as a country, as a national pavilion 3 times now, and we're preparing for the first time at the Architectural Biennale. Um,
Mhm,
we have a national lottery, so government through the national lottery has started to give some financial support. So that's a positive step, not
mm,
100%, not
mhm.
50%, maybe about 20%, but it's a start.
Okay.
And so, and then just a couple of weeks ago, the government of Grenada gave Jason DeCaries Taylor, who is a
Mhm,
sculptor, and he is the one who has done the underwater sculpture parks. Started
mhm,
in Grenada and has gone all over the world putting these sculpture parks underwater. They gave
mhm,
him national honors, um, which is a really important step that they recognized an artist. I know that India is a much bigger country, but you work within your own community first, within your own region, within your own state, and then hopefully become an impact nationally.
mhm,
So
mhm,
it's possible.
mhm. But like you said, it is an uphill task, and it takes, I guess, a lot of time
It
and
is.
investment.
It's like rolling a boulder up a mountain. But you
Right.
know what? Along the way, you meet amazing people. You meet artists and you find your tribe. And so
Mm,
never always be willing to go out on a limb and to do the work, to do the organizing, to do the admin for other people. And, it carries you along and it gives you energy and it enriches your art.
mm. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of inspiration. Um, So thank you, Susan. Those very specific questions that we had in mind for you, and your insight has really, I'm sure, is going to prove very meaningful for all our audiences.
Well,
Thank you
I
so
am
much.
really, thank you. Thank you for calling me. I'm looking forward to seeing the video and seeing the videos of other artists on your channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan.